Hi, today we'll be talking about challenges in policy implementation. We'll try to discuss challenges faced in the policy implementation, the weaknesses in the institutional arrangements, and the steps that need to be taken to overcome the challenges. After the formulation and adoption of the policy, the stage of implementation aims at achieving policy goals. The implementing agency is expected to achieve the goals of the policy and intentions of the policymakers. However, implementation is seen as a tension generating force, tensions between and within four components of the implementation process. These four components are idealized policy, implementing organization, target group, and environmental factors. As a consequence of tensions, there may be a mismatch between outcomes and policy expectations. Coming to tensions, it is assumed that once a policy has been adopted and money allocated, the policy will be implemented and outcomes will benefit the target groups. However, especially in developing societies, political and organizational conditions may not be ideal for smooth implementation. Policy is an arena of contestation, of bargaining and compromises of politics. However, in developing societies, such channels for interest articulation may be underdeveloped or undeveloped or suppressed by official governmental action. In India, a major criticism has been that policies have flown from the top to bottom, due to which they faced problems in implementation. One of our first programs, Community Development Program, faced several problems. Major weaknesses were noted. The program remained largely a government administered program without people's participation and did not become a people's program. No single agency operating in the field was responsible for the weaknesses. There was too much emphasis on end result and less emphasis on following the correct methods and processes to bring about change in the attitudes of the people. In Western societies, interest groups and the political parties try to influence the process at the policy formulation stage. But in developing societies, such groups are not able to influence the process at the policy making stage, but they try to influence it at the implementation stage. This often leads to undesired consequences. James C. Scott says, influence at the enforcement stage often takes the form of corruption. Many policy reform failures result from lack of attention to how reform implementation is organized. Policy change often requires difficult changes in stakeholder coalitions, shifts in the structures and rules of implementing agencies, and new patterns of interaction. The organizational challenge of implementation emanates from its separation from policy formulation, where legitimacy of the decisions taken at the top is not to be questioned and is taken as given. Kuldeep Mathur argues that reducing policy formulation and implementation to technical consideration for achieving goals through administrative means leads to neglecting the other stakeholders. Then there is the issue of capacity. Even if the political leadership is committed to a policy, often the agencies responsible for execution do not have the capacity to do that. There could be several reasons like lack of qualified staff, insufficient direction, or lack of policy communication. For example, JNNURM, Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, was a comprehensive program for building basic infrastructure in urban areas. But the evaluation at the end of the program revealed that urban local bodies complied with the directions but only in letter, not in spirit. In fact, the staff did not have the capacity to implement the program. Many did not even have the complete understanding of the purpose of the program. Subsequently, the mission was extended for 2 years for capacity building alone. Sometimes there are legal difficulties like problem in land acquisition has hampered implementation of many programs. In developing societies, government policies are designed to induce changes necessitated by the new need to develop rapidly. Old institutions are modified or new institutions replace the old ones. A case in point is emergence of special purpose vehicles as preferred mode of implementing policies. For example, Smart Cities program is being implemented by SPVs formed by the state governments and municipal bodies. Another preferred mode of institutional arrangement for implementation has been and remains registered societies. Governments at all three levels, national, state and local, have set up several registered societies for different programs. For example, National Farmers Welfare Program Implementation Society has been registered under the Societies Registration Act in 2020 with the Agriculture Secretary as the chairman for running all center-sponsored farmers welfare schemes. This society would be free to hire resources for running schemes and the central government will bear all the administrative costs. Similarly, DRDAs were set up in all the districts to oversee the implementation of different anti-poverty programs in rural areas. In other cases, process reengineering is suggested, especially in those which are dealing with incremental changes in policy. Challenges before these new institutions are there. Institutions like SPVs or registered societies are established with the aim of focused attention to implementation, but they have their own set of challenges. For example, SPVs are viewed with suspicion by the elected representatives. Take the case of SPV for Smart Cities program. The councillors do not have much control over implementation. In Ahmedabad SPV board of directors, the commissioner is chairperson and the mayor is director. Chairman of standing committee is another director. So there are only 2 members out of 10 from the political arena. Rest are officials. This may be registered in due course, as it may essentially set a trend to undermine local self-governance by replacing them with similar entities in future developments. Registered societies of the governments, on the other hand, have in most of the cases faced apathy from the administration. DRDAs are very good examples. Staff of such societies often complain about their service conditions. Implementations faces lot of problems as well. One is continuity in policies is essential as they are a long-term instrument, but in a democracy, electoral necessities to look at short-term gains. There is overlapping of institutions or simultaneous existence of variety of institutional arrangements for implementation of different programs for similar purposes. Efficacy is further hampered by lack of convergence among such programs. Rural development is such an area. Use of technology is another dimension which can now be used extensively for data generation and analysis and to actively track implementation. For example, Aadhaar linked direct benefit transfers have been found to be effective. However, going beyond would require developing capacities and qualified manpower to generate and manage such kind of data and support decisions process. For example, for Ayushman Bharat to be effective would require huge data regarding insurance audits, pricing and medical records. Now with increasing complexities, there is emergence of wicked problems. Arun Maira, former Planning Commission member, distinguishes between policy implementation 1.0, 2.0 and 3.0. Policy implementation 1.0 requires management of large logistical challenges. India has the ability to carry out a standard procedure in millions of locations, many in very difficult conditions. The eradication of polio in India was a remarkable achievement. The Aadhaar project is the latest illustration of the country's logistical capabilities. Policy implementation 2.0 capabilities require change in behavior of citizens and obtain cooperation of communities. An example is sanitation. Large programs for installing toilets have not been able to change behavior to eradicate open defecation. Local governance capabilities need to be enhanced to tackle this. Policy implementation 3.0 needs sophisticated competencies. Complex changes in the economy require coherence among many policies, coordination amongst many agencies, and cooperation of many stakeholders. Maira says industrial policy is an example of a 3.0 level policy challenge. It would require change in the behavior of stakeholders like entrepreneurs, change in several conditions in the economy to improve conditions for enterprises to be productive and to attract more investments into the economy, improvement in physical infrastructure, tuning of regulations and institutions concerning labor management, corporate governance, land acquisition and other subjects. Financial institutions may need change too. He further adds that the complexity of policy implementation 3.0 generally provokes two opposite responses. One is just leave it to the market will figure out what is best. The other response, when large scale change is required, is to use a top down implementation approach. It would require participation of many ministries and agencies and many stakeholders and a different mindset towards management of complex systems. Finally, I would say that it is often the implementation that has to take all the blame if the outcomes are not as expected, though the success would be shared by many. Thank you.